What's up, Rivalers, and welcome to the Ultimate Rocket Raccoon Guide. Rocket is an amazing healer with a jetpack that gives him some of the craziest mobility in the game. In this guide, I'll be covering Rocket's combos, playstyles, advanced tips, and more. So whether you're a complete beginner or a high-ranking player, this video is for you. Rocket is a healing strategist that has lots of dashes and some clever gadgets that can completely change the rules of the game. His kit is quite simple. He fires a machine gun with his left click. His right click shoots out healing orbs that bounce off walls. His E is a beacon that brings a KO'd ally back to life. His passive allows him to climb and run along walls. He can hover by holding spacebar. His shift ability lets him dash in any direction, including straight up, and his ultimate is a beacon that grants a huge damage buff to every team member in the area. So let's go over each ability and teach you how to efficiently use each one. Rocket's left click is going to be your only source of damage output. It's a minigun that does great damage at close range and can headshot, so you should be aiming for enemies' upper bodies. However, your left click's damage and accuracy does fall off the further away your target is, so don't be expecting to snipe anyone. Use your minigun to safely spray into the enemy's front line to farm up your ult charge and to contribute to your team's damage. This is really more of a spray and pray kind of weapon. Rocket's right click fires an orb that heals any ally it passes through. These orbs bounce off the floor and walls up to 10 times, and every time it passes through an ally, it will grant the heal. So a single orb with the right bounce trajectory can have an insanely high healing value. Rocket can also heal himself with these orbs by firing it right at his feet. The orbs also have a medium-sized area of effect, so they don't need to directly touch your allies to heal them, and this makes Rocket really good at healing flying characters compared to most strategists, since you just need to fire in the general direction of the flyer and not actually have to worry about hitting them. The orbs automatically slow down when near allies that need healing, so it's great for healing multiple clumped up allies. His orbs AoE and multiple bounces means Rocket is really efficient at healing his entire team and keeping those heals coming long after you've used the ability. You can also bounce your heals off walls from behind cover to heal teammates that you can't even see, which is a nice advantage because you are very squishy. Always position at the back of your team to get a nice view and make sure everyone's getting the heals they need. Rocket has two passives. His first passive lets him run up and along walls, letting you gain some nice verticality that other healers could only dream of. The wall run is also infinite, which means if you're getting dove by a melee character, you can just scurry up a wall like the squirrel that you are, and they can never touch you. Rocket's second passive is his ability to hover and slowly descend by holding the spacebar. This is a nice way to keep a bird's eye view of the battlefield and keep some better angles to heal your teammates from. Rocket's shift ability is his jetpack. You can hold up to 2 charges of it, and it takes about 5 seconds to replenish 1 charge, which means you can get off 3 dashes in a 10-second window, making Rocket very mobile. The dash can be used in any direction, which makes it a great tool for gaining a high ground view, saving you a few seconds coming out of the base, and most importantly, using it to survive. As a healer, Rocket is always going to have a target on his head, so you need to be constantly thinking about what your escape plan is and be ready to quickly dash behind cover, towards your allies, into the air, and just generally away from danger. And Rocket's dash is fast, so you can easily use it to dodge enemy ultimates too. Prioritize using Rocket's passives to move and float around the map and save those dashes until you need them. When you string together all 3 of Rocket's mobility moves, his wall crawl, his hover, and his jetpack dash, you unlock the ability to permanently stay off the ground. Good Rocket players will almost always be airborne to scout out enemies and give themselves a bird's eye view of the battle, throwing heals to any allies that need it. Rocket's E ability is a beacon you place on the ground that can bring back the last KO'd teammate wherever you place the beacon. However, this beacon will only bring back a teammate if they've been KO'd after you've placed it, so you can't use this ability reactively to instantly bring someone back. It will just revive the next teammate to get KO'd. This is a game changer because in hero shooters, a lot of the time the first team to get a pick usually wipes the whole team. So this beacon gives one lucky team member an extra life, and in a way turns the game into a 6v7 instead of 6v6. The beacon also dispenses orange packs of armor and a blue pack that gives a super jump to teammates. Now this beacon can be destroyed by enemies, so you'll want to place it in an area the enemy team can't see or isn't likely to find. Placing it behind cover or in an area of the map the enemy isn't likely to push into is ideal. If the enemy destroys your beacon, it goes on a long cooldown, so don't be plopping it down in the middle of the fight or anywhere the enemy can shoot it. Rocket can also move this beacon after placing it, so for instance, if you think the enemy is about to find your beacon, pick it up by reactivating the ability immediately. Picking up your beacon puts it on a low 5-second cooldown and lets you relocate it wherever. Also, this beacon does have a limited range, so if your teammate gets KO'd outside the range, they will not get resurrected. So the idea is if your team gains more ground when pushing the cart or is just positioning aggressively, feel free to locate the beacon into a more useful area. As your team moves up, you should move the beacon up as well. Also, you can drop this beacon at the door and spawn so teammates can pick up the armor, and you can come into your first team fight with a little bit of an advantage. Once everyone has the armor to start the round, you can pick the beacon back up and place it somewhere more useful. Rocket's ultimate is another gadget, this time granting a huge AoE damage boost to your team. Every ally standing in the circle is significantly stronger, so plopping this down in heavily contested choke points or important team fights is perfect. You can also use your ultimate to turn the tides of a numbers down situation, giving your team a fighting chance to outplay the enemy's superior numbers. Now, your ultimate is a destructible equipment just like your revive beacon, but this bad boy has much more health and can take a lot more hits, so feel free to place it aggressively in the middle of fights to maximize how many allies it's empowering. Since the cooldown isn't getting reduced regardless, it also matters less if it's destroyed, and if enemies waste their time firing at your ultimate gadget, they can't be also firing at your team. So it's a great way to split the enemy's attention, and meanwhile, your empowered team is going to be shredding through them. Use this ultimate at the beginning of fights before any of your teammates are KO'd to maximize its value. Remember, your ult is a go button, so use it earlier rather than later. Now let's talk about some of Rocket's strengths as a character. First and most importantly, his mobility is his biggest selling point. Rocket truly is one slippery ferret. Most healers are immobile and very weak to dive characters, so the fact that Rocket has so many escape options makes him a great character to pick into dive comps, and really lets you rely on your own movement when it comes to surviving. Even though Rocket can't quite match the healing output of characters like Luna Snow or Adam, his ability to stay alive without peel makes him a very consistent healer comparatively. After all, your healing output drops to 0 if you get KO'd, so Rocket actually ends up out-healing a lot of strategists just by staying alive longer. This also means that Rocket isn't as reliant on his team, which lets them focus more on doing their jobs and not having to worry about babysitting their healer. He also has the smallest hitbox in the game and can utilize cover in areas most human characters can't. Rocket's orb bounces also allows him to throw heals to characters that are fighting in completely different areas that Rocket can't even see, such as enclosed rooms and choke points. This means Rocket can keep the heals flowing without even putting himself in danger. Rocket's also really good at healing flying characters compared to some supports because sometimes landing heals on allied flyers can be hard, but the orbs have a very generous AoE, so it's not a problem for Rocket, whereas other healers have to really lock into land heals on them or even just straight up ask them to stop moving. Rocket brings a ton of utility, giving his team armor packs, super jumps, damage boost, and of course a second chance at life. He's also got to team up with the Punisher and Bucky, which when activated gives all three of you infinite ammo with no need to reload and increases your fire rate. This gives Rocket some great synergy with those characters because this is basically a miniature second ultimate. Rocket also has another team up with Groot, which lets you ride on his back just like in the movies. It also gives you some damage reduction, making you a little harder to pop. This is a decent team up, but it also restricts Rocket to moving where Groot wants to move, which isn't ideal for a character with as much movement freedom as Rocket. While riding Groot, you can also heal yourself just by throwing orbs right at Groot's feet. The best way to use this team up is just as another dash, snapping on and off Groot to make yourself a harder target to hit. And with that being said, now let's talk about some of the weaker areas of playing Rocket. Despite all of Rocket's mobility, he can still get two-shot by a lot of hit scan characters, and if an assassin like Spider-Man gets the jump on you, it's probably lights out for Rocket. This is why saving at least one charge of your dash ability is crucial. The second you get hit, flick your camera and dash in the opposite direction because you are still a very squishy character. Rocket can also struggle versus high burst damage enemies because while your healing is versatile, it's relatively slow. The value in Rocket comes from consistent heals due to always being alive, rather than out-healing high bursts. He just can't quite heal fast enough sometimes, so it's important to keep everybody at 100% HP to prevent them getting popped through your healing. All in all, Rocket is a great healer to play for both new and high skill players. His mobility makes him insanely slippery, and his gadgets bring a unique level of utility and strategy. Be sure to cycle between firing your heals and pumping out damage, keep that res beacon hidden from enemies, and use all three of your movement abilities to stay airborne and alive. If you follow this advice, you'll be carrying your team to glory in no time. Let me know which character you'd like to see a guide on next, and I'll see you in the next one, Rivalers.